This is hilarious. This is awesome. First of all, well, let me say thank you so much, number one, for inviting me here to Worcester and Boston.
Thank you for coming. It's your first time.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. This is kind of an awesome place. And first of all, did you notice how I said Worcester relatively correctly?
Yes.
Is that not right? Worcester?
Well, it's Worcester, I think, is most correct. But as a Midwesterner, I will say Worcester. And along those lines, I think since I've been corrected so many times till I finally figured that out here, you know, I think I'm going to teach you all how to say my home city correctly to give it right back to you. So I'm going to teach you guys how to be a Midwesterner. First of all, raise your hand if you are from the East Coast generally. If you're from this, basically every last one of you. Now you tell me if I get this right first of all. Okay, so it is Worcester, is that correct? Now, but that's not true with Dorchester, which is Dorchester. Is that correct? Do I sound relatively like a local saying that? Yeah, fooled you, didn't I? All right. Now I'm going to teach you how to. If you all like say chop somebody up and kill them, put them in your refrigerator, then you want to hide in the Midwest. Here's how you say Detroit. Now, normally, here, I'm going to pick somebody. Raise your hand. I think you can sound like a Midwesterner. We're going to play a little game. Raise your hand. You. Stand up. Stand up with a Boston hat. All right. Now, say D-E-T-R-O-I-T. Okay. Not bad. But you wouldn't pass. I'll teach you. Here's what you do. I want everyone to say this. Say, duh, like duh. Like duh. Duh. And now, this is going to be really hard for you East Coasters because you want to pronounce the T so bad. But you're going to swallow it, all right? You're going to say Troy and then suck on that T like it was a lemon. Troy. Say that.
Troy.
Now say duh. Troy.
Troy.
All together.
Duh. Troy.
Hey, how you guys doing? Good to see you.
Dialogue from a mouse.
I love that. That was so much fun. Thank you for indulging me. That was a lot of fun. I love hearing dialects so much, and this is like one of the most unique and awesome in all of America. So I just take it in. I'm like this all day, walking around Worcester and in Boston like this. It's awesome. It's just awesome. So these panels are hilarious. This table, you know, is very standard and awesome, and they've done a wonderful job here of setting us up. But I do feel like I'm an IBM executive trying to get you to buy shares. It is a little odd, but it's fine. So hold on a second. We'll get back to this. Hang on a second.
I like it. We're already going off script a little bit.
All right. Oh, that's better. Oh, there's no room here, but that's all right. All right, so. Crap.
You want to make room?
Shit.
We can make room.
I said, want to see how far this goes? Just knocks out on the lines. That's good. No, I'm good. No, I'm good. No, you're fine. I'm good. I just wanted to stand up. I'm good. Thank you. So I took a train from Worcester to Boston a couple days ago because I'd never really seen Boston or Worcester. I didn't know the train ride would last 3 days, but it did. What the heck?
You want to walk around? More mobility.
Why do you? Oh, this is a good one. Yeah, fuck that shitty mic. I want this thing. Great, thank you. Oh, this is so much better. Okay, yeah, that was like elementary school, circa 1981 mic. That was really bad. Anyway, so the train ride took like forever, but it was awesome. I also didn't know this about trains from Worcester to Boston, which is they stop every 30 feet.
Yeah.
And there was a new city, I swear, it must have been every 10 minutes. And I was like, are these cities like 10 feet from each other? But there's so many. And it's so interesting about New England because they're just one after another, you know. And I think that's because, you know, when, of course, we settled this country, they must have been like, well, we've been walking for 3 hours. Let's put the city here. Ah, good idea. They put a city there. And they just kept doing that. So, you know, the train ride is just really annoying. Anyway, but I didn't know there were so many churches here. I didn't think there were enough people to fill 3 of them. There's like 300 of them in this city. It's awesome. it looks, I mean, they all look like movie sets. They're beautiful. You guys, you stare at them all day? No, you guys are like, I'm gonna shit down here. But to me, it was just amazing. Anyway, awesome to be here. Thank you. So glad to be in Boston. Hey, what do okay, so if I'm in Philadelphia, I guess you want like a cheesesteak, right? But what do I order here in Worcester and Boston to get the local flavor of what? What? I'll never forget that as long as I live. Chowder. Now, what's in chowder exactly?
Clams.
Clam seafood.
Clam?
And potatoes.
That's it?
Potatoes.
Clam and ham?
Potatoes.
Clam and ham? That's weird. That doesn't sound very appealing. It's just a bunch of clam and ham and put it in a bowl? What?
Clam chowder.
Potato. Okay, that sounds good. That sounds really. Okay, I'll look at that. Thank you. I'm going to do that. So anyway, sorry, enough of all that nonsense. I'm going to put the crack pipe down now and actually start talking about it. So, my name is Ted Ramey. Thank you for having me here. It's very nice to be here. I don't know what to say at the moment, just because I'm a little overwhelmed at Worcester itself. I just didn't think this was such a huge and awesome town. You know, we see it on the map, and we just go, oh, look at that, Worcester. That's very, but we didn't know it was just such an enormous, awesome place. Now, I am, my next, first, anybody have any questions for me? Are there any, before we do that, we got a moderator. I'm sorry, I'm totally ignoring you.
You don't need me. Like, you're on the roll. Keep going.
I guess so. Well, okay, so I've got a new TV show coming out. I have to get that out of the way first. It's coming out in later this month or early next month, so they tell me, but I'm not sure. It's called Dead Wax. It's horror. You can watch it on Shudder. Shudder TV. So yeah, it's gonna be a good one. Be horror fans. For those of you who don't like horror, get the hell out of here. This is a horror fan. Say about that. But I think you'll like it. I think it's pretty cool. It's me. I was directed by a guy named Graham Resnick, who's from New Hampshire, I believe. And it stars Hannah Gross. Did you guys see Mindhunter, the Netflix show? That's the very attractive young lady in the first season who's a love interest. And so she and I are in it, so it's pretty awesome. Spooky and awesome. Now, does anyone have any questions for me? I'm here to answer your questions, pick my brain, all that good stuff. I will answer most anything. Yeah, basically most anything. Sir. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being here for one. And how has playing, that's not English. When you played the condom salesman in Blood Rage, how did that change your life?
Why, you get right down to it, don't you? Okay. So, did you all hear what his question was? He said, when you played the condom salesman in Blood Rage, how did that change your life? I put that on my resume when I go into office jobs all the time. No, well, that was the first movie I ever did. And in fact, on the video box, because it was kind of a weird movie that, well, actually you guys would take. I dug it too. But they were Ted Ramey's first movie, so it says it on the video box, you know. But it's true. It changed my life because I was living in New York at that time, and I didn't have any money. I mean, like, really, like, I didn't have any money. I had pennies. You know. I was broke and almost starving, but I had enough pennies. I remember before there was Ray's Original Pizza, there was just this generic pizza joint across the street from me on 13th and 3rd in the East Village. And there was 99 cents, it cost 99 cents for a slice in those days. And I saved 99 pennies. This is what I remember about Blood Rage. I saved 99 pennies. It took me about 3 weeks, and all pennies. Brought them up to the counter, look at that. Guy looked at me like he wanted to kill me. Counts 99 pennies out. Meanwhile, there's a line out the door. They want to kill me. And I get this giant slice of pizza, and I haven't had pizza in like 2 weeks. I've been eating Cheerios and potatoes the whole time. Put it on I'm getting ready to eat it. The piece of pizza slides off the greasy paper plate and lands right on 13th Street. And I was like, fuck New York City, I'm never going to be an actor, I hate this business, I hate it all. I bought a ticket to go back home to Detroit, and my agent, the only person that took pity of me, was a really crappy agent, handled like, you know, Jojo the Clown and Bobo the Juggler and me. Says, hey, you actually got this part. And it was that movie. And then I was an actor. But I was literally like 4 hours from never doing anything in the business again. So that's just that's how it changed my life. So you asked, now you know.
Thank you.
He's like, man, I don't want that long. Who else has a question? Anybody? Who else has a question? Yes, you.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm actually from Western Mass. We exist.
Western Mass.
Yeah, we don't have an accent. See? No accent, no dropping the R's. After Spencer Mass, we couldn't drop the
Western.
R's.
Wow, you're like the weird Massachusetts.
We're in the weird Massachusetts.
Incidentally,
We're not in the
we call
Berkshires.
ourselves in Michigan, believe it or not, Michiganders. It sounds like a bird, like some kind of weird bird. But what do you call yourself if you live in the state of Massachusetts?
Massholes.
You do not.
Yes, we do. Wait long enough, you'll find out.
Oh my, that's true?
No, it's totally true.
It is. It is.
We're called massholes. You're here for 3 days?
Surely, in a session of Congress here in this state, as they are passing laws, they do not say, we will raise taxes perhaps 1/4% for all of you massholes.
Absolutely. They do it on purpose. They hate us.
No.
I'm so confused right now.
Well,
All right. Okay, I'm sorry, but please go on with your story. Ye who has half no accent.
half no accent
Yes.
from Western Mass,
Yes.
Springfield area.
Yeah.
I want to know what your favorite thing was you've done.
My favorite thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's a good... Well, actually, this is going to sound like I'm blowing you off, but I'm really not. The favorite thing I've ever done is this thing I just did.
Really?
Yeah, and I've done, I've done nearly 100 movies in my life, and which sounds impressive until, well, I had to count. Like, if you go to IMDb,
Yeah.
you can. There's no way they don't number them, so you have to count how many things you've done. So I went like about 3 months ago. I counted them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I was like, hey, look, I've almost done 100 movies. Wow! That takes a really long time. God damn, I'm a fucking old guy. That's like 100 movies. That's like someone that designed 100 buildings or something. What is that guy, 1,000? Anyway, it was sobering. But of all the things I've done, TV shows I've done, this last thing I've done was my favorite. I just loved the story so much. And it was the first TV show I've shot in a long time that I didn't want it to end. Like when we wrapped our last day, I was really bummed.
So is it like it'll have seasons and how many episodes in a season?
It's weird. It's a sort of a newer format. So it's somewhere between like what they used to call a mini-series
Oh, yeah.
and a regular series of 10 episodes. So they call it a limited series. It's really weird. It's just a new TV term. But so it winds up being like 6 episodes, you know, as opposed to like I've not 3 or 10. Anyway, but I just loved it. I loved the story. I loved my character. It was great to do, and it was just exciting.
And Shudder's really cool to work with? 'Cause it
Shudder's
seems like a
awesome.
really
Shudder's
cool-
awesome. They're an awesome channel. Plus, they're doing new original programming now, so they don't sort of have a tired format yet. They don't know what they want. You know, it's sort of Wild West. So for you horror fans, I would recommend checking out Shudder just to see what they're doing, because it's kind of original, crazy stuff right now. You know, like most networks that do horror now, such as Starz, they do a fine job. They do traditional. You know, here's the episode. Here's the beginning of the episode. Here's your story. Okay, cool. But Shudder just does weird stuff with the story arcs, so it's very interesting. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Who else has a question? Anybody? No? Nothing? Not at all. But what I thought, you guys are famous for
There's one
your
right there.
outspokenness.
Can we talk about lunatics?
Should we talk about lunatics? Yes, we can talk about. Yes, do you have any questions about lunatics?
So I was
Yes.
pestering about those backstage lunatics, the love story. Have you guys seen it? Anybody show hands?
No, you have. You've seen lunatics. Well,
I know I feel
lunatics.
very old.
Yeah, please.
So 1991, it's kind of your year of cult cinema.
Yes, it was a big year called cinema.
You guys, can you do me a favor? So there's this kind of idea that you lose 50% of titles as we transition through mediums. So anything that's on VHS, you lose 50% of those titles when it goes to DVD, and then 50% of those titles when it goes to Blu-ray. So we're losing gentleman has put his blood, sweat, and tears, and sometimes a lot of sweat into.
Thank you.
Please go find these things because they're really wonderful. This is Lunatics is in particular. It's on YouTube, which I don't know if that's the best thing ever, but find the VHS. I know you still have VHS.
Well, here's the good news. After 30 years now,
Yes.
the movie is now coming out on DVD.
Really?
They are releasing it on DVD. Yeah, they are. For those of you who, thank you. For those of you who don't know, and you might not because I know you're all horror fans here, it's the strangest little indie love story with supernatural elements in it. It's a bizarre movie, but kind of cool. It's about this agoraphobic, played by me, who lives, of course, alone in his apartment, as agoraphobics frequently do. Tinfoil all over the walls, as agoraphobics frequently do, because they think aliens are trying to suck their brains out. They're also paranoid schizophrenics, as well as having a fear of open spaces. They go together. And he gets a random phone call from someone, a wrong number. It's a girl who is on the run in Los Angeles. And he's living there as well. And so he tells her, panicked, that his address. Then she hangs up. And so this girl he's never met comes over. And this girl's completely crazy. She's just out of her mind. But so is he. And they fall in love. But she has to go. And if he has to get this girl, he's got to go outside his apartment to find her. And that's the story. So it's really weird love stories. But it survived. I don't know why it's got legs like that. I really thought that movie would come and go, but for some reason, people still find that appealing. I don't know why.
It's charming. It's absolutely, it's like
Oh, thanks.
87 minutes of charm and fun, especially for those of us who are on the appreciative side of the odder things in life. There's some really fun visuals that we kind of talked about at the very beginning.
Yeah.
There's some kind of is it stop motion?
Some stop motion, some traditional, this is pre-CGI days. So it's, there's stop motion, there's rear screen, like a Bogart movie rear screen, it's old school effects,
And then this one, you get the girl, and that other guy, he gets it back to the head.
That's right, I get the girl, so that's nice. It's probably the only movie where A, I live, and B, I get the girl, two things that never happen to me, so, I don't know, it's kind of fun.
And was it kind of therapeutic? I know it's a launch, but the other guy gets it back to the head. A little therapeutic to kind of finally read up on him a little more than
yeah, it was nice. It was nice to be the hero. Yeah, it's nice to be the hero once. I did, and if I remember the hero in the movie, that's like how I like it. It's nice if I'm going to be the hero, I'm sort of also the anti-hero at the same time, which is really interesting to me. So, that was pretty cool stuff. Sir?
In your greater collective of that you all came up with in Michigan that was written for you, but when it got through producers or whatever else, you didn't get it.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So were you did Sam or anybody else in that collective of yours I wrote this for my brother, but then when it got to the Money People, they changed everything around. I know Crime Rate was famous for having a lot of not the people that say Sam intended to be in the roles and stuff like that.
No, that never happened. No, there was never a movie written for me, and that I didn't get, but I have certainly had other people write many projects for me that fell through, which was very disappointing at the time, but as time goes by, you realize it was all, I don't know, you believe in grand schemes or whatever. I don't think I would have been a character actor or a cult actor if that had happened, if I'd gone mainstream. Look, this con is full of actors like me, cult actors, like Lynn Blair and, Bill Moseley, guys like that. And none of us actors begin by trying to be a cult actor. Right? You can't try to be a cult actor. It's just something that happens to you. It's the bus you missed when you were trying to get downtown, but a broken down limo came with a creepy old dude driving it, and you went, well, I guess I'll get in that. That's what happened. You're trying to get it. Everybody wants to be a star. Sure, everybody does. You want to be a legitimate star. But you wind up being the one project that you thought was going to be great, normal, and it bombed. This is how it happened. It bombed, or it didn't go mainstream, or just a few weirdos really loved it. Then later people were like, oh damn, this weird ass project, which everyone thought was a piece of shit, is actually pretty good. And they start watching it. They go, oh, all the people in it, oh, they're cult actors now, ooh, oh, you know, like that, you know, it's just sort of how it happens. That happened to me, whether I liked it or not, and I wound up loving it. But at first I rejected it. You know, it's what all of us do too. You're like, wait, I didn't want to be the guy that keeps dying in every movie and vomits blood and stuff like that. I wanted to be the guy that, you know, is on the NBC Family Show. But then I wound up realizing that wouldn't have been for me anyway. So yeah, that does happen, you know, and that happens to directors too, whether they like it or not. Certainly Ed Wood, a guy who would have absolutely vanished in the annals of history as nothing, as not even a blip, because people rewatched that movie so many times saying, my God, this is the worst movie ever made. They started to relook at some of his movies and realized, yeah, they are all crap, but they are. But there is an individuality in them which is unparalleled in many films of those days. And he's so brave. He's just a guy who was a cross-dresser also, who in the end didn't mind people who knew that he was a cross-dresser, which today would be difficult to do. Today would be outrageously difficult in Hollywood. Then it was absolutely the death knell. I mean, if they could have hung him, they probably would have, you know? I mean, it was absolutely insanely taboo thing to do, you know? It's like, basically, it'd be the equivalent of saying, I love sleeping with donkeys. Can I shoot this movie? I mean, it'd be like that. Like, it's just crazy. So, you know, that's how cult movies get out there. Like, for example, like, you've all seen The Room. Did you see The Room? Yeah, it's awful. It's just awful. It's the modern day Plan 9 from outer space, you know? It's so bad. That guy got really famous. I'm sure he absolutely didn't intend that. He's saying he did. You know? But the great thing about that guy, though, is that he still thinks he made a really great movie. You know, he doesn't understand that he made maybe one of the worst movies of all time, too. But it's not up to you when you're a cult actor. You can't try and do it. And many filmmakers, many actors, try and make cult movies. We've all seen them. You know, like Psycho Beach Party 4. It's like, no. That's not cult. You're trying to make it into cult, but unless people hate it first and love it. So anyhow, I'm getting off on a crazy tangent. But it's true. But then you have to wonder too, like, I wonder this. I ask myself this question all the time. Why do you ask this? Why do we like horror so much? All of us here. We dig it so much, we pay outrageous prices to get in here. We pay outrageous prices to get actors' autographs, you know? I do too. I do the same as you. I dig it. You ever ask yourself that question? Because if you say to yourself, like, it's an easy question to answer, why do we all like love stories, okay? Maybe we don't all love them, but we understand the appeal, right? Everyone loves to be in love. It's a nice feeling. Why do we like comedies? Because life's hard. I like to laugh. Of course we do. You know? Why do we say, like a good action movie? Well, everyone understands a good fist fight, guys and girls. You know, some wars are worth fighting for, and battles are worth winning, and we get that, you know, like hero movies. But you say, why is it that we like to be frightened? Like, what? Isn't life hard enough? Like, don't we all have enough problems and fears, financial and relationship and all stuff? So why do we spend all this money to increase that worry? Ever think about that? To increase that feeling. And I think the answer to that question, why we all dig it so much, is a strange one, and I'll give you my theory. But it's this. Like those other emotions, it's something that makes us all really, really human. But it's the one feeling we're not allowed to show or display. Right? There's other ones too, but it's basically the only one we can't demonstrate, that true fear. But we can do it here. And we can do it in a movie theater that's dark, or in our living rooms that's dark, you know? It's a little like porn for the soul. It's a little bit, it is. And it feeds our spirit, I think, in a way, just like romance, just like hunger, it makes us all really human. But it's the only place we can actually sort of experience that as in a movie theater. So we dig horror for that. That's what I think. And I think it's equally as important in that regard, psychologically, as any of those other genres, even though it's derided and they go, oh, it's just a fad, it's just a fad. It's not just a fad. It's always going to be this. As long as we need to, and the safer our world gets, you know, like the nicer our neighborhood we live in, you know, the more security we have financially, the more we need movies like that. I mean, but I'm always amazed, I think that it's true, and then I'm always amazed to meet fans of the genre who are in financial dire straits, you know, whose girlfriend dumped him and, you know, his car got towed, he just got beaten up and he's like, I love horror. Dude, watch a comedy, dude. Trouble. But anyway, that's what I think. That's my theory. I don't know. I always wonder about that when all of us get the movie things like, why do we spend so much money on this stuff? Anyway, anybody have any other questions? Sir?
What was it like?
Guess not. Yes. Who's answering that? Yes. Sir?
What was it like working on Twin Peaks and working with Kenneth Walsh?
Oh, Twin Peaks was a great experience. It felt like I was making not a big network show, it felt like I was making a little indie movie. That was the vibe on set. It didn't feel oppressive, you know. Many times network television shows can feel oppressive because they're so expensive. You know, there's a lot of money on the line. There's a lot of advertisers that need to be satisfied to make sure that that show is good. There's a lot of network executives that are getting very uptight that are walking back and forth talking on cell phones. But that did not feel like that. And I imagine that had a lot to do with, likely, how David Lynch demanded that set be and how his personality was, you know. David Lynch, the show creators were like, hey, show creator. Very Hollywood kind of guys, you know, walk around in these slick suits and show creators. But I remember reading for David Lynch and walking into the room for that show, Twin Peaks, and I thought to myself, when I saw this guy sitting there, I was like, whose dad is that? Like, I see the sponsors, like clearly that guy's probably from Procter & Gamble, that dude's probably from GM, and was that somebody's dad? Like, it was just this guy, and he's got like this generic check shirt he probably bought at Target in, you know, and then he had like some dad pants and he had like a fanny pack, and I'm like, okay, and that was David Lynch. I didn't know at that time, which is maybe why I got that part, because I wasn't nervous. I was just like, so I'm reading for some you know, sponsors and somebody's ad. And it just felt sort of like fun, because I'm being at home. And, but it was fun. Kenneth Welsh was awesome. He's an actor's actor. I remember him as a very sweet man with one of the best dictions of any actor on television that I can remember. And that's rare to find, because there's so many mumblers now, it drives me up the effing wall. I can't stand that. Like, you know, we're paying to see you. We paid money to see this movie, and I don't like, it drives me crazy when actors just, you know, just go through takes and mumble crap. I can't stand it. It's your job. It's the only job they have. Say the words. They don't do it. You know, basically, like, I don't know. If you're a cab driver, it's like, yeah, shined up the car, and the radio's working great, and I'm dressed real neat. Yeah, but you gotta drive the fucking car too. That's it. It drives me crazy. Actors do that, so it drives me nuts. But anyway, yeah. Who else has a question? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm a low-budget horror movie guy. I have a company here. Do you
What's your company called?
Loyal's House of Blood Production. I'm based in
Loyal's House of Blood Production.
Yeah,
pretty
it's
good.
In Vermont. I'm located there. Anyway, do you still do shorts or micro-budgeted projects?
Sometimes, yeah. Was that your question?
Yeah.
Yes. I do micro budget movies sometimes, but I only do them, you know, if they're great. If the script is great and the director is great, and you know, then I don't mind getting paid $3 a week for 6 weeks. You know, but it's got to be something like that, something awesome. Yes. Anybody else have any questions? Yes, Miss. Oh, yes.
Can you tell us about Lunatics, a Love Story? How you got in it, and why it's been gone off the shelves for so long?
Well, I don't want to Yeah, I'll tell you, I mean, sort of covered it a little bit, but I think I think it's, as she was mentioning, it's just sort of just a nice love story, and I think the audiences tend to find it charming. I guess she's a word for a nice word, so I'll take that word. Yeah, I think so. It was nice making that movie. We shot it outside of Detroit, Michigan, in a place called Pontiac, and yeah, we shot at this very abandoned high school. We shot everything in an abandoned high school there. So yeah, it was a great experience. I'll never forget it. It was awesome. Debbie Foreman was the girl. She's a great actor. So it was a wonderful experience. Who else? Anyone else? Yes, sir. You. Yes.
Oh.
When you first started as an actor, making movies today, what's the biggest differences? And I don't mean so much techniques like CGI and stuff, but the business itself. Is there something you miss from when you were making movies and how the industry was and how it is now?
That's a good question. That's a really interesting question. Okay, yeah, there's a couple things. First of all, the techniques of making a movie are identical. Nothing really has changed with the exception of some small technological advancements such as digital, but it didn't change much on set. Everything's basically the same, digital film to digital. The biggest difference is, I think, when you were in an indie movie, it was a big deal. Because movies are so inexpensive to make now, there's a billion of them. It's not that interesting to be in an indie movie anymore. It's rather commonplace, but then it was really something. So it was hard. If you were on a network show, when I was doing network shows, through the 90s and early 2000s, some starring, some guest starring, but when you're on a show, you have to remember there were only 4 networks, and only 20 cable stations, and that was it. There was no internet. So it was huge. So that means that the market share for those people that saw you was enormous. So it wasn't now if you have, say, if 1.5 million people watch an episode, that's enormous market share. But in the 90s and early 2000s, that wasn't much at all. I'm sorry, excuse me. In those days, that wasn't much at all. In fact, we would get market share such as 5, 10, 20, and 30 million people would watch an episode at night. And it was kind of fun in one regard. If you do TV now, people recognize you. One thing about those days I do remember the most is I think the days are gone forever, they're never coming back. But I do remember you would really get mobbed like some kind of a rock star, it was really something to see. Sometimes, if you were on a show that was quite popular, you just couldn't go out of your house. Now it isn't true. People might recognize you, but it's just the numbers are different. The techniques are all the same. And in a way, it's good and bad. It's great that new actors, new directors have easier access to funds. It's just cheaper to make movies. But because there's so many of them, it's not as special anymore, I think, a little bit. But other good news, there's just, amidst all the dross, there's just more awesome movies now than there ever was. That's a good thing. One last question, and then I have to go back to my cage, sort of play. Yes, sir.
Hi. Do you think that did you always want to get into acting? Do you think that you would have still gone into acting, if your brother hadn't become, a director, gotten into that? Did you always?
He had nothing to do with it, actually. My mother got me into it. She was an actress herself, and she, when I was in elementary school, she would tell me, "Hey, let's skip school and watch a movie." I'd be like, "That would be great." Sometimes in high school, frequently in high school, I'd skip high school days. But they weren't goof-off days. It wasn't like, let's go goof around and, have lunch and see a movie. We'd have to sit down and she'd analyze it. It was like homework. There's Tyrone Power, there's Ed Bancroft. This is a Howard Hawks movie. Look how the camera's like this. See how fast they cut there? That's very unlike other Hollywood directors at the time. It was like study session, study time. So that got me into it. Also, I'm a practical guy, and so I had a bunch of really, really crappy jobs. I was a busboy. I washed dishes. I was a golf caddy. Let me tell you something. If you're ever a golf caddy, kill yourself first. Don't ever do that job. And even to this day, you know, I mean, I think I blew a lot of jobs in my life because I never learned golf. Because a lot of deals are made on the golf course, Hollywood deals, you know? And I had people say, hey, come on, we'll go golfing and we'll talk about that. I'm like, nope. Nope, not going there. You know, it'd be like if you had electroshock therapy and like, hey, you want to plug this in for me? No, I don't know if I can touch something. So it was like that. They were all such crappy jobs. And finally, you know, and then I washed dishes. Don't do that either, but really don't golf caddy. Don't be a golf caddy. But when I was washing dishes, a friend of mine said, hey, you're pretty, you know, goofy, why don't you go audition for an industrial film here in Detroit, where I lived at the time. And so an industrial film, incidentally, is an in-house movie made for that company. So for example, if say Rocket Shock made an industrial film, it would be how to find people who are sneaking into the convention and kick them out politely. So they would make that movie. You know, there'd be an actor to go, if you see a convention goer going through here, be nice, but don't be too nice. There's that kind of stuff, you know, and I made a million of them. And with the first one I made, the check I got was as much as 3 weeks of washing dishes. Basically any job you get would be 3 weeks of washing dishes. I think I was paid below minimum wage. It was awful, but that's what got me into it. And I was like, wow, okay. So it was just a practical thing, you know. And I wound up loving it, but for the first 5 or 6 years, it was just money-making venture only, just because I, you know, had to support myself. But yeah, that was it. It was pretty unromantic, you know. Most actors have this thing where they go, you've heard it a million times on network shows where people are being interviewed. They say, well, I saw Fight Club. You know, I saw whatever, Titanic, I saw, you know, I saw, whatever, I don't know, some movie, TV show, you know, that I just saw that, I had to go out to Hollywood, and the acting bug bit me. I never got bit by anything except a bed bug. And that, you know, had informed the rest of my life. So that was it. Yeah. All right, one very last question. Yeah, okay, one more. Anybody? Anybody? Sir? Belt it out, it's okay.
What are some of those films that you watched, brother, that really kind of did it for you also? I'm sure you had to be a little bit
Oh, yeah, I think well, I was taking it, yeah, well, the ones at home I saw that I still think about today, one was The Razor's Edge, a famous Somerset Maugham book, which is also my favorite book. It was made into a movie, I think Paramount made it, starring Tyrone Power. Gene Tierney, great movie. That really like opened my eyes to what acting could be and what filmmaking was. And then another one was when I was 8 years old, my mother took me to see Jaws. And it might not seem like much now, but in the theaters when you're in 3rd grade, that was damaging. That was something. And I saw, you know, all these really adult films. My mother took me to see Marathon Man. I saw a lot of horror in the 1970s and early 80s. I was too young to do that, but it's kind of great. Love that. Okay, folks, thank you for having me here. It's been awesome talking to you. Mostly you've been awesome, yes, hearing my blather for an hour and a half, whatever. But thank you so much, and see ya.
I love the series. Adam Green's a great guy. The movies are fun. The gore works. It's over the top. I love it. It's throwback slasher. I love it enough that I have a tattoo of Victor Crowley. And Sarah and I don't know if you remember when Hatchet 2 came out on Rated, it was supposed to play theatrically nationwide. And it was in the theater for about a day and a half before I got pulled. We drove 12 hours to see that second movie. We were that dedicated to that franchise. So it was amazing all these years later for Adam to give me a call and say, hey Joe, can you come by the studio? I want to talk to you about something. And with Adam, I knew that if we're going to talk about something, I better pretty much clear the books for the day, because it's going to be long-winded, and we're going to fly from here to here to here, which also I do, which means together, the day's over. That's it. And I sat with him, and he said, I got to tell you, there's a new Hatchet movie coming. And I was excited. I was really excited. I didn't realize they'd already filmed the whole thing and they were in the editing process. So he's like, I want to show you something. And he showed me the 2 scenes in Victor Crowley where he mentions my name. For me, I'm a huge movie geek. I'm a horror geek. So to hear my name in that meant I'm a part of that franchise. And I get off on that shit. I mean, I did background on Twin Peaks, The Return, just to be a part of that fucking world and to say, I'm in the same world as all those characters I grew up seeing. And it was amazing because I had a good shot of me in there. Sarah, my lovely, beautiful lady that's texting and not even looking at me talk, that's strike 2. Strike 2. One more, no sex tonight. This afternoon is still okay, but not this night. You only saw the back of her head, so technically she was kind of in it, but in typical fashion when we work together, they pair her with somebody else. She goes with a nice young looking dude, and I get a grandma. Not that there's nothing wrong with a grandma. I've been with a few grandmas. So getting an opportunity to do something Hatchet was amazing. I'm sure you've been there. Has everybody here seen Adam Green do one of his panels? High energy, you get him 100%. That is how he is at all times. He is the hardest working person I've ever worked with. He works round the clock. A lot of it he does for free. Like Horrified, which I did an episode. Did anybody see my episode of Horrified? Maybe a few of you. What he does for Horrified is you sit down and you talk about your most horrifying experience you've had in your life. Which for me was the time I pissed myself driving my car. And I had recently done that. And what I didn't realize is usually the episodes are 4 minutes long. The first take, uninterrupted take of me telling the story about peeing my pants in my car went for 21 minutes. So I have a tendency to do exactly what I'm doing now, which is just saying words that form sentences that really aren't going anywhere, but somehow, magically, we're all on the same ride listening. And I think, yeah, I got a second wave of edible there. And I'm a little tingly, a little bit hungry. I think maybe I might have a cheese sandwich after this. I think cheese sandwiches are wonderful. So, I Survivor. How many people here have read the book? Is anybody? Well, my girlfriend has. You still strike 2 though. And you've read it. Wonderful. Andrew Young, who's a character from Hatchet 3 that actually survives, and in Victor Crowley. In Victor Crowley, the book plays a central role, and 10 years after the events of Hatchet 3, Andrew's on a book tour promoting the book and his experiences. So what Adam wanted to do was actually write the book, an autobiography for a character from a movie, but get deep, go into his backstory, growing up, kind of anti-my normal shit, because there's really no weird sex monsters, and there is one chapter of gore, that's the night chapter, where he talks about the deaths and all that. Which was great for me because I gotta make up some ways Victor Crowley kills people, and I came up with some pretty fucked up things. But I'm not gonna read that today because the chapters are too long. What I think I'm gonna read is a letter. Now, if you haven't seen the first 3 Hatchets, these are gonna be spoilers for you. This takes place where Victor Crowley spoils nothing, although I do recommend picking the book up, because there's going to be a lot of things peppered in within this that when he comes around and does Hatchet 5, you'll be able to connect some dots. Things will make more sense to you having checked this out. But Andrew Young survives his night in the swamp in Hatchet 3. After that, he's kind of in a lot of trouble. He's going to get arrested. He's the only survivor. So the book really deals with his upbringing, the whole night in the swamp, and the aftermath of the trial and all that. Within the confines of the story, we all know that Daniel Harris's character also survives Hatchet 3. So we have a way in the book, which is basically, people have covered that up. It's just now a mystery girl, nobody knows, she left a statement. But Andrew knows somebody else survived. Because if nobody else survived, how would they have all went out in the swamp that day? So he knows there's a Jane Doe. So while he's in prison, he writes a letter, more for himself than anything, having to do with his stay. Years later, he writes another letter because he's got a different perspective on the situation with Mary Beth Dunstan. I actually forgot that name for a second, which is why I said Daniel Harris. I forgot Mary Beth. And I apologize for that. It's Sarah's fault. I'm trying to concentrate as much as I can sitting here, but every time I look at her, I just keep getting the fuck me eyes. And I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry, honey, I'm at work right now. I'm trying to, do a reading, which in my typical fashion, we're what, 10 minutes into this? And I haven't even read anything yet. And there's the sigh. Okay, now let me find this. How many of you right now are realizing this isn't exactly what you expected it to be? Pretty much everybody? Here's the deal about this too. I didn't really know what the fuck I was going to read, so I don't even remember where this is in here. So I guess for now, you're just going to look at me, flipping through these pages. Imagine me on a beach, drinking my hand, cool breeze, throwing my beard all around, exposing the luscious chest hair. And now, I'm continuing to talk while I look. It's mesmerizing. Admit it. You're drawn in to every word I say. It feels amazing, doesn't it? I have no idea where the fuck this thing is. And I'm going to keep looking. It's got to be here somewhere. It has to be. So, how about that rain today? Not too bad, right? We don't get that in LA. We don't get much rain. We get fires. Go Yankees? Oh, hey, look, guess what? I didn't find it. All right, let me just... I just have that little breath mint. Jane Doe, for a long time I searched for you in my quest for vindication. You know the truth of what happened in that swamp, as you experienced it firsthand. You know what I was up against, what it took to survive. I've been angry with you for quite some time. I held on to that hate, knowing that you could have come forward and helped me when I was unjustly facing the death penalty. Did you watch my trial? How could you not step forward to share whatever you knew? You could have saved me a lifetime of pain and anguish, yet you chose to stay in the shadows. I used to question my own sanity. There were moments in my life where I blamed you as much as I blamed Victor Crowley. Sure, you didn't chase me through the swamp on that path of destruction, but you did allow the destruction of my life to continue. I cursed you on those dark, lonely nights I spent in jail. Where did you go? I've wanted to find you, to scream at you, to take it out on you. I wanted to take it out on someone. I've been the world's whipping post for all of this. Have you been able to get your life back on track? I wonder. Do you still wake up at night in a cold sweat, hearing him call for his daddy? I do. I've held so much hate in my heart for you over the years. Every attempt to find you has led to a dead end. It's as though you have vanished. I've come to a profound realization while writing this book. I'm not angry with you anymore. I'm envious of you. I'm sure your life isn't all roses. I know that you must have to deal with the psychological ramifications of the Crowley experience, just like I have to. The difference is that you've been able to do it without the world judging your every move and blaming you for what that monster did. That is my burden to carry alone. But I no longer fault you. Had you come forward, it still wouldn't have changed anyone's mind. After all, I was proven innocent beyond a shadow of a doubt, yet they still blame me, hate, and crucify me to this day. Had you come forward, the only thing it would have accomplished is destroying your life too. I don't wish that on you. I don't wish that on anyone. You are the only person in the world that can relate to what I experienced. You survived. That's why I still want to find you. Just once I want to talk to someone that believes me. I want to look into your eyes and see recognition there. You know the truth. Victor Crowley is real. I ask that you find it in your heart to reach out to me. I want to hear your story. There has to be a reason we both survived. I won't drag you through the mud. Just want a moment of clarity in hopes of releasing some of the anguish I've been unable to let go of. I try so hard to forget, as I'm sure you do, but I can't. It's always there. Maybe together we can find a way to cast it aside. If anything, I will finally be able to assure myself that I'm not alone. Andrew. I was very happy when we kind of came up with that, because one of the big kind of plot holes is in Victor Crowley. It's not necessarily the plot hole if Adam sees this, but one of the things is Andrew's set up as he's the only survivor. And by the end of Victor Crowley, this will be a spoiler, we find out Mary Beth is also still alive. So we kind of had to come up with a way of making that make sense, which is why we went with there's a little more of a conspiracy. Because in my mind, if these kills have been going on for so many years, people are missing left and right. It is a swamp, so people do go missing. Something's got to be covering it up in order not to let it get out. So we kind of explored that in the book. And it goes to some deep places. Adam really put a lot of his heart and soul into this, especially the first few chapters on Andrew's upbringing in college and high school, meeting Sabrina, who, if I haven't said yet, you're gonna really fucking hate after reading this book. She's just the worst. Quite opposite of my lovely lady, Sarah French, role number 3, seat number 5. So, most of the chapters in here are pretty long, which is why I picked kind of a shorter thing to go through. What I can also do is read another story from one of my other books that's short that we can get through if there's interest in that. And we can also, if anybody's got questions on this at all, I can take questions. If anybody wants to just come up and gaze into my beautiful blue eyes, I'm okay with that too. Because they're mesmerizing, especially when the sun hits them a certain way, they just, beauty cascades off. And that's how I end up with an attractive woman like Sarah French, the love of my life, star of Rootwood, Hanukkah. You guys want to hear something that's batshit insane? This is batshit insane to me. I just worked on a movie called Hanukkah, which is a holiday slasher. And I played the killer in a movie that stars Sid Haig and Caroline Williams and PJ Souls. And for the horror nerd in me, that's fucking ridiculous. It's so stupid. And Kane Hodder was the stunt coordinator. So, sure, Kane, give me the knife. What do you want me to do? Absolutely. It was a beautiful experience, and Sarah's in it. And I killed her. Which means I'm one ahead. We track how often we've killed each other. She was one ahead of me, but then there's a movie called My Uncle John is a Zombie by John Russo. And in that movie, she shoots me. But they did a re-edit, and now it's somebody else that shoots me, so she lost that one. So this officially means I'm one up on killing you. Because I killed her in her first movie, that's how we met. I cut her head off and beat her friend to death with it. And when that happened, I could just see her looking at me, and I was like, yep, she wants a piece of the netter pie. I'm gonna dish one up. Some ice cream and beauty. You wanna hear the weirdest thing about my beard? Because everybody's looking at it? Actually, it's chest hair. I comb it out. Manly. Does anybody have any questions for me? Have you guys figured out yet why me and Adam get along so well? Because I haven't. If there's even a minute pause, I have to say something. Because it just, the silence is deafening. And along with what's appearing to happen here right now. So here's the deal. You're gonna ask me a question. Ha 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 ha.
How did you first meet Adam Green?
How did I first meet Adam Green? That is a good question. At a horror convention, probably Rock and Shock. He had a booth, I went over and talked to him, because I'm a huge fan. I think he's very underrated. I think Frozen is a masterpiece that doesn't get the attention it deserves. The Hatchet films are fun. And I really love Holliston. I think Holliston's tons of fun. So I basically just met him at a convention. We were bonding, we have some similar friends, and he got a good vibe off of me because I'm exactly how I am right now is how I am all the time. And I know now everybody should sigh for Sarah, realizing that the torment and hell I put her through with my daily weirdness. She's like, I just want to know what time we're leaving. And I said, well, you know, So Adam's great. I love Adam. I would do anything he asked. And I should probably be in the next Hatchet movie. I mean, I'm established by name, but Adam's great. You've met him? Yeah. Your experience was good? That's awesome. He's just a good guy. He works so hard, and I wish him the best. And by best, I mean working with me, because it's all uphill from here. Yes. The collaboration process.
Yeah, for I Survivor, how long was the collaboration process?
We stayed separate at first. What we did is we broke down the 12 chapters, and we each took 6, and we wrote them separately. He went off his and did his. I wrote mine almost right away. He obviously was editing a movie and 45 shows for his Aeroscope pictures. So we reconnected kind of right before the movie came out to kind of compare and see what we wanted to do. And we liked what we had. We thought maybe we need a rewrite on it, but then he did the Victor Crowley tour. And during that tour, he had a new perspective on the character. And what that character meant and what he was going through. So when he got back, he called me up and said, all right, I'm going to change mine. So he changed his chapters, which of course meant I had to change mine. So it was back and forth. I'd look at his, he'd look at mine. I would say the last week we spent doing the rewrites on it. We put 100 hours in just that week at the studio. But with that being said, the way it works with Adam, which is what I love, is we'll be sitting there and we'll talk about music. And next thing I know, we've listened to 7 Striper records in a row, and just all 80s metal and I'm sitting there geeking out. I see all the props from the movies and shit. I mean, the fucking chainsaw sitting there, and it's just amazing. So 100 hours that week felt like that, and it's just wonderful. And he's so gracious because when you work with him, he invites you as part of the family. So anytime I want to go over there, I can hang out and do that kind of stuff, which is. The 100 hours for me was exciting, but it was even more exciting for my gorgeous honey pie of a baby girl, Sarah French, because she got rid of me for a week, and she was happy. I'm a lot to deal with. If you haven't figured out this yet, I'm a lot to deal with. I'm a handful. But yes.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I am wonderful.
So, is this the first time you've collaborated with writing with somebody else?
Yes, in a fiction world, yes. I mean, I've been part of anthologies and stuff, but they're separate short stories, but never actually this. And that was difficult. When we first sat down, we thought, well, we need to really have it be one voice, which with two writers is really, really difficult. But we quickly realized we have the same kind of way of talking and writing style, which is we just kind of flow through it. So that was a real concern. We were shocked when we read the first time through, and it kind of was seamless. It felt real. And a lot of that 100 hours we put that last week with the rewrites was just making sure everything flowed right. We had a little bit of an out if it felt a little weird, because it's established that the ghostwriter embellished things. So it makes sense if some of it felt out of place, but it really doesn't. I was very, very happy and very excited.
Second question, do you have copies of this at your table?
Yes, the hardcover sold out on the initial run, but we do have the paperbacks. I have like 12 or 13 left, I think, so there's still some left, which is, wonderful. Because this is his first book. I've been doing fiction since 2003, and this was his first, so he really wanted it to be right. And the hardcover was so beautiful. It had red cloth and gold lettering underneath, and when you get that, just to see him the first time he got to open up the package and it was his book, it was amazing. And I was happy I could help him do that.
I have one more question. I'm so sorry if anybody else has. Do you have any other books?
I have Zombie Bukkake.
Oh, because somebody's looking for it.
Yeah, I have, I think, 2 copies of Zombie Bukkake left. I've got a short story. Hello. Twisted Loneliness has an introduction by Sid Haig. I got an introduction by Bill Moseley, and I think I got maybe one other book. Oh yeah, Inspired Nightmares. Which was, I wanted to do something weird, so I had a bunch of people just come up with story titles. I didn't want to know anything about the story, just give me a title. And then I wrote all the stories around that. Which is a fun way to try to do it, because in my mind I went, well, I don't want to do the obvious thing. And not that I ever do the obvious thing, usually everything's really weird and fucked up, but yes, I have that one too. Sarah's got a whole bunch of lovely pictures of her looking attractive. Did anybody last year see my picture I had at the table? So we have this thing where she used to have a book. Honey, I'm going to go into the story, and I apologize. If it offends you, we can remove one of the strikes. But she had a book at her table where she had her topless photos, because she did a lot of modeling before she got to be an actress. And guys would come up and they'd look at that book for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. They just stare and go through it, and I get it. She has wonderful boobs. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny though if we put a naked picture of me right in the middle of the book, just to get reactions? And so we did. And the first person to open it laughed, and then they bought it. And we're now it's a joke's room for the weekend. So we start this competition thing. So last year we had competing photos. She did the American Beauty shot, laying with the flowers, and I did the same shot with leaves on me. A little less quality, but we wanted to see who would sell the most. And there's no nudity in hers. In mine there was. I had leaves over the boy parts, but I did stretch it down a little bit so you could "Where's Waldo" the tip. And it's there, and people find it. I did have a white Sharpie too, so I'd sign coming out of the cockhead, which was probably the 4th greatest thing to ever happen to me. And I'll also say we ended up tying. We both sold the same amount of pictures, so that's a win for me. She likes to say it's because I actually showed nudity and her lady parts were covered. But I just think people like the D. This really isn't what everybody was expecting, is it?
Hi, so I just started reading Bio Beauty, which is my first foray into your work. I love how the stories are really like short and punchy. Can you tell me a little bit about your process and your influences and just kind of a general idea of like where all of this comes from?
Yeah, absolutely. I usually don't sit down with anything in mind. When it's time to do another book, I just sit and start writing short stories. I believe there's a story in that book called Dishes, which was simply because I was married at the time, and it was my turn to do the dishes. And my ex-wife knew that when I'm in writing mode, I have to just be left alone, I have to write. And I really didn't want to do the fucking dishes. So I said, oh, sorry honey, I got an idea for a story. So I went downstairs and wrote this story called Dishes, which is about a guy who kills his wife and spreads her lady parts over the garbage disposal and tries to fuck it. It's an interesting one. It's deep on so many levels. And, but usually it's just that. I sit down, I don't try to make them fucked up or gory. I think for me, they end up being that way because I've never read anything that scared me. But I've read things that have kind of grossed me out, so I lean towards that kind of stuff. I try to get through a first draft as fast as possible, because it's so easy when you're in the middle to stop and never go back. So I skip around. If I don't know what's going to go into place, I just skip ahead. Because oftentimes, doing that, I find a way to come back to it anyway. And when you get that first draft done, you feel accomplished. It feels like you did something. And it's easy to go back and polish and add things. I will say this, Vile Beauty is probably my most fucked up short story collection. There is a story in there I wrote for a gross out contest called For the Love of Orson Welles' Fat Black Ejaculate that got thrown out of the contest. A gross out contest for being too gross. But there's subtext to it. Everything I do, I try to at least work something in that makes sense underneath a different level. And everything's done with a smile. I mean, I've said a whole bunch of horrible shit up here probably, but as long as I smile, I get away with it. Because I don't really mean all of it. Some of it I do. All right, and the next question. Yes, sir.
What's some of your favorite authors to read?
Oh, favorite authors? I grew up on Stephen King. I read It when it came out, when I was 9 years old. Clive Barker's great. Obviously, I have to mention Jack Ketchum, who is, most writers at conventions don't like me. And when I do panels with them, you can tell there's a weird vibe because I'm not exactly like most of them. I say weird shit, I say what pops in my head, and I don't always speak with the most brain power, and he was always one though that loved having me on the panel. He was just a good guy. He liked that I brought something a little bit different, and Jack Ketchum's great. Ed Lee's great, but Stephen King for me is still the greatest. I mean, I read him all the time, and I just read Mr. Mercedes for the first time and loved it. And I'm hearing from somebody, maybe somebody here, that the show is really good. So I'm going to check that out too. Sarah, would you like to ask me anything, please? No, I'm good is also what she usually says when I take my pants down. No, I'm good. No, it's all right. I'm on my 3rd week of my period. Everybody laughs, but don't periods last 3.5 weeks?
No.
And there's 3 to 4 good days? That's what I thought.
So, what is your favorite horror movie and why?
My favorite horror movie of all time is Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. I think the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the greatest horror film of all time. It still works for me in every way. But I gravitate towards 2 because it's got the comedy, it's got the perversion. And when I was young, when that movie came out when I was 10, I had the Fangoria magazines, I had the pictures hanging on my wall. I was so excited about that movie. And I was playing with my Masters of the Universe toys. And yes, absolutely, Ram Man and Fisto. And I remember hearing the trailer start on TV, and I turned around, I was so excited. I knew this was going to be the greatest horror film ever. But it's unrated, so when it ended, it said no one under 18 could see it. And I'm 10 years old, so I thought I had to wait 8 years. I was heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken. Not long later, because it came out on VHS pretty fast, we were at the video store, which I miss video stores so much. Just discovering new shit. You know, you can do that on Netflix, but you shut them off because they're terrible. The video store days, no matter how bad the movies were, they were still watchable. And I miss going in. But that day I was just looking, and then I saw the cover of the VHS. And I was so excited. My Uncle Mike rented it for me. He was my horror person growing up. Took me to all the... I saw Friday the 13th 4 at the drive-in 4 times. Twice out the back window with no sound because it was a multiplex drive-in screen. But I wasn't going to watch the movie that they were watching. But I knew the words, and I just stared, and I was a goofy fucker. And I still kind of am, I guess. I'm not the most normal person in the world. But Chainsaw 2 for me. You see how we just... It's a question. I started here, and I went like to 5 places, and then looped back. And Chainsaw 2, which is really cool to have Caroline Williams play my mom then in the movie Hanukkah. Because Caroline's very sweet. She played my aunt years ago when I was in a movie as a killer Easter bunny, but it never got released. Probably a good thing, because it was terrible. I wrote it, so, you know, what are you going to do? What time do we got? Is it inappropriate for me to ask somebody to tell me what time it is? 2:40. I'll say we still got 20 minutes left. I wanted to reach down and pull my cell phone to look at the time, but if anybody here knows me, there would have been a sudden worry that I was going to be dragging my cock out, and I'm not doing that this year. I promise some people. Did anybody go by my table and see the painting behind it? Yeah. My table's out there. When this is done at some point, just come by and look at the painting that a friend of mine, his girlfriend, painted it for me and gave it to me at the show, and it's wonderful. It's amazingly. There's a lot of dicks in it. I'm just going to say that. If you're anti-dick, then probably don't come by my table. But if you like dick, I'm the table to see. Yes? What's too much? For me, I have levels, but I think everybody should have the ability to say whatever they want, and nothing should be censored. To me, a joke, it has to be everything or nothing. Me personally, I won't write about children's deaths, and you know, it's always for me a cutaway, because I think that's more impactful. Although I did write something once where a woman found a baby in the toilet at a rest stop and wanted to keep it, but she was on the run from the police, and as they were driving up to her, she slid it inside her, and as its foot kicked her clitosaurus, she ejaculated it back out. So that's I guess that is a level, but yeah, that was horrible. A toilet baby, what the fuck was I thinking? But like intense stuff like that, I won't. I think it's better, you know, to show the shoes after the accident versus describing what's going on. Otherwise, most everything else is fair game. It's just whatever feels right for the story.
With your books, do you self-publish?
I have both self-published and had that traditional, like, small press type stuff. And for me, the self-publishing works better. I mean, I control it better. I know I'm a limited market. Not everybody's going to want to buy a book called Zombie Bukkake. They should. They should. Yeah. Well, a lot of people have, but it works for me just because years ago I did a lot of these shows. I used to do 14 a year back in 2003. And you build an audience, you build a market. It's much different now. Books have kind of gone away. Shows are so much more expensive, and they're just different.
Of the question, actually, there's another part of the question. I remember a few years ago you wrote "Let's Agree to Be Gay"
Yes.
with Creepy,
Is that out of print or?
I wrote a poetry book with my friend Steve Uncle Creepy Barton, who used to be with Dread Central, called Let's Just Agree to Be Gay. What that was we took a picture actually at this show. We stole the show's mascot, and we took a picture in bed with it naked, and we thought, that should be a book cover. So Steve likes to write these kind of funny poems, and he's been doing that for years. So he said, let's do a book. And I said, okay, give me 45 minutes. And I wrote my half of the book, all the poems, in about 45 minutes. One of them's called Avalanche, which is just a blank page. Not everybody gets it, but that was a page. It's still available. And Steve and I actually do a podcast called Brainwaves every Wednesday night. We're live at 7 p.m. West Coast time. We do an hour of just weird talking like this. And then we bring a guest on the second hour, either from the horror paranormal world. We've had a lot of cool people. We had Ted Raimi on, which was awesome. I confessed to him that my girlfriend has a signed picture of him hanging up above our bed, and she looks at it when we make sex. And then I let him know later that, just so you know, I gotta be full honest, sometimes I look at it too. And by the end I had to admit that it's actually on my side of the bed, but he's a lot of fun. So that's Deep Talk Radio, Brainwaves, Horror Paranormal. We do live shows every Wednesday, and sometimes we do a live investigation. We'll go to like a haunt. We'll convince like somebody that has a 250-year-old house to let us just run wild in it, recording shit, looking for ghosts, which is awesome, because Sarah and I do that. We've written a couple paranormal books, because we do a lot of paranormal tours. It's amazing, because every investigation we do at some point, I sit there and in my mind go, I'm 42 years old, and I'm in a 250-year-old house looking for ghosts. Life is fucking weird. It's weird. It's weird how we all end up doing what we do, but I love it. I mean, last year was shit for me. I was in a walker last year. I weighed 100 pounds more. I was getting ready for my 4th spinal surgery, and I just decided to embrace positivity and not dwell on the negative and just be weird and stay weird and focus on happy things. And Sarah did the same thing, and this has been a good year for us. I mean, I booked with Adam Green. I play the killer in a horror movie. She did a romantic comedy, and I love romantic comedies. That's my second favorite kind of movies, and she hates them, but I love them. She goes to bed, and I watch romantic comedies all. I have a sweatshirt, a Denominator sweatshirt from Never Been Kissed that's screen worn. And yes, I made her wear it before. And so like I watch Hugh Grant movies and shit when she goes to bed. So for her to do a romantic comedy was great, and I actually got to be in it, which is my first romantic comedy. I'm a stalker, so it's about, right, I'm a horrible person, which is usually what I get. It's prisoner or stalker, never sexy love interest, but that's all right.
Are any of your books on audio formats?
No, Adam is doing I Survivor later in the year with Perry doing Andrew's character, which is going to be awesome. But there was Twisted Loneliness was close. Sid Haig was doing recording it back in the day, and then got busy. We got sidetracked and never got back around. This is a long, tedious thing to do, and it costs money. And I'm a writer, so I don't have any money. Don't tell her that. She's still expecting me to roll the bucks in.
You mentioned that you haven't yet to see a horror movie that really scared you.
Yes.
Is there anything in real life that scares you?
Yes, I have 3 daughters. This is where everybody freaks out. And I was a single dad at 19, so I've been a dad my whole life. The only thing that scares me is them, is things happening to them. And because it's, we live in a crazy time. And with the internet and everything, and like my youngest daughter, she's gonna be 17 soon. So she's just wrapped up in the internet world, and it can be, the internet should make us the smartest we've ever been, but it's not. It's fucking everything up, except for porn. Porn is awesome that you can watch it on your cell phone and shit. I used to have to break into homes and look for pictures. And statute of limitations are okay, that I can do that. But that's the only thing really. I mean, I've seen movies where I've jumped and stuff, but nothing's really terrified me. In writing, nothing ever has. I guess it's, I'm on the spectrum, I'm very high functioning. So I have a different outlook on things sometimes, and I say, that's why I just say whatever pops in my head, I have no filter. So the emotional disconnect is there for me sometimes, and nothing really ever scares me. She scares me sometimes, Sarah. She's been doing CrossFit training now, pushing sleds like 200 feet and boxing, and it's, I don't know if it turns me on or scares me. It's kind of a mix of both, but that's all right.
I have a question. Is anything paranormal that you've seen scared you? Or have you seen anything?
I never believed in any paranormal stuff until we started going places. We lived, in Minnesota, we lived on a cemetery. Catholic cemetery, and then we rented the house there. So they stored all the broken headstones in our garage. And the garage was bad. It just felt bad. You'd walk out there and you'd get angry. That was bad. I mean, I've seen shadow people. I get sleep paralysis, so I've seen that. But I always weigh it out in one hand with, I can't explain how that happened. And then I go, weed. Edibles. I took 4 bong rips. That woman that just came out of the closet and winked at me might not have been a ghost. But we go for the history as much as anything. I mean, we've been to the Lizzie Borden house a couple times. We spent the night at the Waverly Hills Sanatorium, Stanley Hotel. It's one of those things where I think everybody likes paranormal and they want to experience it, but when you kind of do, it just changes your outlook. Because it's bizarre. Because I'm not religious. I guess spiritual, I believe there's probably something, but I mean, we've seen in the children's ward at Waverly Hills Sanatorium, we saw a rubber ball roll 8 feet, stop, and then roll right back to the same spot. And we tried recording it, but everybody's recording devices would not work. They all shut off during that. That was a little weird. Almost as weird as the fact that the lovely and talented Sarah French, my lady friend, likes me. It's bizarre. It's weird, right? It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. But here's the thing, is I've always dated attractive women that I kind of figured, hey, let's give personality a shot for once. And it's working. It's working. And it's working the best because she's as beautiful on the inside as she is on the outside. And by inside, of course, I'm talking about her vagina. It's like a carnival ride that you just want to go on over and over again. It may only last 2 to 3 minutes, but I come every time, so I got to be pretty good at it, right? Now, by a show of hands, how many people in here are surprised by how this went? Okay, that's pretty good. Good, thank you. So any other questions, comments, concerns? Just under 8 inches, if anybody was wondering. I'm sure that's, you know. And by just under, I mean 6. I say it's 12 though. It's 6 on the way in, 6 on the way out. That's 12. I know math. I know math. That's dick math. Well, this is fun, right? All right, well, I think we're almost done. Any final questions? All right, thank you, everybody. We'll be at the booth. Come talk to us and look at my penis painting.
All right, so this man needs very little introduction. I'm assuming he's currently, if you check IMDb, has over 230 credits to his name. I think he's got 17 things in post-production and or production right now, so I don't know if he sleeps, we can ask. I don't know how it's possible with all the work that he does. I need you to do me a huge favor though, because I promised him we would give him the loudest round of applause, and if you're not loud, I told him not to come out. That's just how these things work, guys. So, without any further ado, let's give it up for Malcolm McDowell.
ever so slightly. It was so nice. Thank you. What a great crowd you are. Small, family-like, charming. I was just saying, it's nice to be in New England because the people are so fucking nice. And it's true. Really hospitable, nice people. And it's always a pleasure to be here. Enough of that bullshit. First question.
Oh my gosh, so we're just gonna hop right in. When I was a little kid, and I think a lot of us are around the same age, even though I try to pretend I'm not that old anymore. The first introduction I had to horror, and I think a lot of you might relate to this, was Tales from the Crypt. You happened to star in a fantastic episode in the third season, 7th episode, The Reluctant Vampire.
Yes, I remember very little about it. Except George Wendt was in it. And as I was a great fan of Cheers, it was always great to hang with him in the bar, as it were. But, it was interesting because he actually worked with a friend of mine who was a crazy alcoholic in Moscow in Russia, which seemed so weird to me. And I went, how was that with Ronnie? And he sort of looked at me and gave me an old-fashioned look, which meant that they were probably chased all over by the KGB, I don't know. But yeah, it was fun, and the director, who is, you have it on the Google there?
I do actually.
Okay, well, he was actually a terrific director who had done a really terrific movie that I liked, which I can't remember now. Anyway, I remember thinking, oh my God, the director of that movie, I love that movie. And it was Cat Ballou, I believe.
With Jane Fonda. Cat Ballou, Jane Fonda.
Could have been.
She is the titular Cat Ballou. And my
Cat Ballou, was she in that?
She is Cat Ballou.
Okay. Cat Ballou?
The girl cowgirl, yeah. It's Elliot Silverstein.
Elliot, yes, Silverstein, thank you. Well, you know, I've done so many damn things, I can't keep track of all this stuff.
I just mentioned you have 237 credits on IMDb.
Well, I'm so old. I've been doing it for such a long time.
And you have 17 things right now in production or post.
I don't know. I've no
idea. Do you know where you are?
Just, you know, people talk to me about something, and I go, well, it's a very good idea, thinking they'll never get the money for that, really weird idea. And of course, then they put it on Wikipedia or whatever it is.
And then suddenly you're in.
Yeah, they're saying that I'm committed to it, which I'm not. But, you know, if you sneeze in the right direction, then you're doing it, whatever it is. But that's not necessarily the case. But, you know, people can say you're doing this, that, and the other, but until they have the money, it really is pretty meaningless, you know. So when they say, great, you're cast to do this, I always go, well, when I get the plane ticket, then I'll begin to believe it.
Okay. So that was my introduction to you, but a lot of the world's introduction to you was through the Lindsay Anderson trilogy. And
yes.
I was kind of hoping maybe you could talk a little bit about Lucky Boy, If, and Britannia Hospital.
Lucky Man.
Lucky Man, sorry. Britannia Hospital, and if you wouldn't mind.
Well, it goes If, Oh Lucky Man, Britannia Hospital. That was the sequence of events. So If was my first movie. Although I'd been cast in another movie called Poor Cow, which was directed by Jesus, the man who did Kess. You know, what's his name? He's a very good director. But he'd done this thing on the BBC called Kathy Come Home. I can't think why I can't remember his name. But I'm remembering the damn work he did. But, God, what's his name? Poor Cow. Anyway, I was cast. Ken Loach, thank you. I was cast in this movie, Poor Cow, with this other woman, and she was the star of it. And I was supposed to play her love interest. And then, a week before we started shooting, I was told that, in fact, Terence Stamp had been given my part because they needed a name. And so I was playing a smaller part of a man, a guy that she picks up on the street. And in fact, what happened was I was cut out of the movie because I shot one scene. We had another scene to do, an exterior in London, where it did not rain for 2 weeks. Who would have thought? It was a world record. So I got cut out of the film, luckily, because it meant that my first movie was a brilliant one, called If, directed by Lindsay Anderson, which was about a revolution in a boys' school, a boarding school. We call them in England public schools. The public school was set up so that the aristocracy could send their sons to be educated so that when they graduated they would move on and rule the empire. That's how these schools came into being. Such a joke now, but so some of these schools are 1,000 years old. It's sort of amazing, really, and they are the very heart of the establishment in England. And so when we did this film about the revolution in one of these schools, it became very inflammatory, and you know, we were attacked, and yet all the young people came to see the movie and made it a huge hit. And they loved the film, and it's still one of my favorite films that I did. It's the first, so of course I'm sentimental about that. But I got to work with this genius, Lindsay Anderson, who was an Oxford Don. He was an Oxford graduate. He'd taken the classics, Greek, and all the rest of it at Oxford. And he was a wonderful guy. So when I first met him, he was 47 years old, which is exactly the age that Stanley Kubrick was when I worked with him. And they were both titans of what they did. They were both at the top of their game, great, great directors, at completely the opposite end of the scale. So Lindsay Anderson was, you know, like a theater director but loved film. And so his view on film is rather poetic, and when I say poetic, I mean it in the sense of John Ford. Epic, big stories, big Monument Valley, beautiful pictures, and great moral tales, you know, like John Ford's Westerns and all the rest of it. That's what Lindsay loved, and he was also a bit of an anarchist. He, you know, hated anything. I mean, talk about the royal family. Whoa, not with Lindsay Anderson. No, let's not talk about the Queen.
HRH is coming to visit.
Where?
Britannia Hospital.
Oh yes, exactly. Yes, in Britannia Hospital, which is a very underrated film. Then we made If, and it was a huge hit in England. It was also very well received in America by the critics. It was on the art scene, so it was on that circuit. So it wasn't broadly seen, but by all filmmakers, it was really thought well of. It was in the top 10, on the top 10 best list movies, pretty much from everyone that year, 1969. We went to the Cannes Festival. They won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, and so, you know, I said to Lindsay, I was a young kid, you know, I was maybe 24 or something, but rather naive, you know, having come from the provinces, Liverpool. We were sort of way behind London, that we called the Big Smoke, and for obvious reasons. Anyway, I said to Lindsay, you know, we're obviously such a hit, you and I, Linz, let's do another film, you know, of which he looked at me like I crawled out from a rock or something. And he said, Malcolm, what do you think? Good scripts fall from the trees? He goes, if you want to work with me again, I suggest you write it. And he turned on his heels and walked off. This was on the Croisette this very famous street in Cannes, where the Palais de Festival was and the whole deal. And he walked off, and I sort of shouted after him, "Well, I will, I fucking well will." And when I got back to London, I started writing my sort of memoir of a coffee salesman, which I had been for 5 minutes. And the kind of wild life that took me on. And, you know, I was this 19-year-old kid sent out to Yorkshire to sell coffee, where they only drink tea. So that was an interesting part of my life. And, you know, I kind of had fun. I had a list of cards to where I was supposed to go, because they were left by the previous salesman who had been arrested for trafficking in stolen goods. So this is the kind of thing that I wandered into, and I'd go in to see the catering manageress or whatever, the manager, and they would say, "Yeah, we'll have the same coffee, but what about those nylons? And have you got any more of those watches?" I go, "Excuse me?" They go, "Oh no, that was the last fella, I think they were stolen." So, you know, I was 19 years old, I was having a ball out. They gave me a car, and a car full of samples. And I remember I stayed at this boarding house in Leeds, Yorkshire, that was absolutely draconian. It was like £1 a night or something, but there was no sockets in the room. To make my coffee, which I had a Kona thing, which was part of my sample thing, I had to plug it into the light socket, and I had a young lady came back for coffee. I had to take the electric out, plug it in, and we're sitting there talking, and there was a bang at the door, and he goes, "Can you come out? I know you've been in there for 20 minutes with the lights off." So I opened the door, and the idiot just saw these rings glowing in the dark. We said, "We're making coffee. I want you out of here in the morning."
He thought making coffee was a euphemism?
No, so he sent me out. He threw me out of, I got thrown out. Which was not the first time or the last. But it was, there was no hanky-panky. Although it was in the recess of my mind. I never quite got around to it. But there you are, that's another story. So I had all these adventures as a coffee salesman, and you know, I went into one place, it said on the thing it was a hospital, and in fact, as I was driving up, there was a guy who was gardening so I stopped, got out of my car to ask him where the catering manager's office was. And he literally turned on me with a rake and chased me. And of course it was a mental hospital. Who would have known? Had a lot of psychos there, so...
Do psychos drink coffee?
No, but I had a bit of fun there with the catering manageress. And it seems to me that I didn't get home till way past midnight. But there you are. So I had all these kind of really ridiculous things going on, which I could draw upon. And I wrote them all down in a sort of everyman story and gave it to Lindsay, who started to look at it and heaved, sighed, and said, "Is this supposed to be funny?" Now, any writer that would hear that would be despondent. But me, no, I was not. Because basically I wasn't really a writer. And I said, it's not only funny, I said, it's hilarious. But of course, you wouldn't understand that because you're not from the north. He goes, well, actually, I'm a Scot. I said, yeah, but you haven't been to Scotland in years. You're not really a Scot. So your name is Anderson, but that doesn't mean to say you're a Scot. It's like I'm McDowell, but I can't claim to be Irish. Although, to be honest, I do often. Especially if I'm around a lot of Irish people. Yeah, well, I'm Irish, McDowell. But I have only been there once. But does that count? I don't know. But anyway, so he read it and said it. Oh, he said, Malcolm, I'm sorry, it's not very good, is it? I said, actually it is good, Lindsay. It's good, it will get better, and it's your next film. And he said, well then you'd better call David Sherwin, who was the screenwriter of If. So, which of course meant that he was interested. And so I gave it to David Sherwin to read, this 40, 50 pages. And he read it, he came in to the living room, we sent him off to the bedroom to read it. He came in, he said, this is bloody fantastic. I love this. Well, let's do it. And so we wrote Oh Lucky Man, which was called Coffee Man then. And that's just the way it was. We were in a pub, and I went, you know, David, we've got to come up with a better title than Coffee Man. It's really, what is this film about? And he goes, well, I don't know, success, luck. I went, luck! Lucky Man. I went, I like that, Lucky Man. Let's call Lindsay. So went to the call box, called him. I said, we're coming over, we've got the title of your new film. He went, I have a clip. Rushed into his flat. And he said, you've got to be quick. I said, just sit down, sit down. I'm going to whisper the title of your new film in your ear. He said, just hurry up. It was sort of irritating, which made it even funnier. And I whispered, Lucky Man. And honestly, he went, oh, Lucky Man. We went, yeah! Because he'd done a movie, a short documentary, that he won the Academy Award for. A short documentary, and it was called Oh Dreamland. So that's why he went to Oh Lucky Man, which made it special. So there you are, and that's how we started it all. And then we went rewriting the script. That was pulling teeth, but that's another story.
And then how did Britannia Hospital kind of serve as
Well, Britannia Hospital came out of that. We did this section in Oh Lucky Man of this doctor who was experimenting, and in fact, there's a scene in it where he takes a guy's head and transplants it onto a pig's body. And it's a rather shocking image. In fact, most people remember it from the movie. And so they took that character, that doctor, and made him the star, the kind of centerpiece of the next movie, which was about the health organization in England called the National Health. And, you know, listen, it's free, and you'll be lucky to survive it. If there's anything wrong with you, if you lived in England, you can get on the first plane out. That's all I know. But then people would decry that and say how disgusting, it's great. Yes, okay. Okay. There you go. Anyway, that's how that came.
And those three could kind of be taken when I watched them, I kind of take them as a bit of a time capsule on society and a bit of a moment to kind of examine what was changing in the 60s and then on through the 70s, and in 83 was Britannia Hospital, if I'm not mistaken. So they're each a bit of a time capsule on what was going on in British society and reactionary tales to British society at the moment. do you think, especially if it's still relevant now when you rewatch it, because I feel like it really holds up and still, I don't think we've learned the lessons of society.
I think Lindsay is such a great director that honestly those 3 films hold up really well. Like Clockwork holds up really well. It's 50 years, you know, in a couple of years it could be 50 years. And so we've already had last year the 50th anniversary of If, which doesn't even seem possible. But I mean, if you'd said that to me when I was cast, I would have fallen down laughing. Because at that age, you never think you're ever going to get old. And you just can't even imagine it. It's like, what? And the Beatles sang, you know, like, when I'm 64. Hey, pal, you're way past 64.
Is there anything, though, that you think when you're making it is going to be around and have the legs and longevity like that? Is there anything that when you get a script and you make it, you sit there, even now, and you think that it's going to have the legs and longevity of 50 years?
You can't think like that. Of course, you know a good piece of writing or not, you never know how it's going to turn out. And you know, film is so dependent upon the vision of the director. More so than any other medium. You know, on stage, it's the playwright. And that your first responsibility is to the playwright, is to the written word. In film, it's actually to the director, because the director is the auteur, the author of it. He's the inspiration of it. I'm not talking about studio movies that are green screen deals, you know, that's made by committee. I'm talking about interesting films that are sort of on the cutting edge, you know, that probably will never be financed by the studios. But the studios are not in the business of financing interesting independent movies, you know. They want to make money, and they want to make it on a weekend. They want to make a lot. And you know, the stuff they do is more Marvel stuff or green screen, which you can't blame them. I mean, they're not a charity. They're there to make money for their shareholders. That's just the way the business is.
And people are going.
Yeah, they love them. I mean, look, my kids love them. Can't say I do, but I go and have a very nice nap.
And now the seats recline and the legs go up. So
Oh, I love that. Where was that? You couldn't even get a meal in some of them.
Meal and a drink.
I don't want to go to a movie to have a meal,
It's a
though.
little weird.
It's too weird. God almighty. It's like dinner theater. You're in the middle of a speech and going, God almighty, save me some of that. I mean, it's ridiculous, but they are. They do anything to sell seats, you know. I don't know.
Another director you've worked with who's known for having a really distinct vision is obviously Rob Zombie. And speaking of legs of a film, we're coming up, and it's 40 years from Halloween. The new one that is discounting everything but the originals coming out this week. But you were in both Halloween and Halloween 2 with Zombie, and I was kind of hoping we could talk about that because your Samuel Loomis is a vision apart from
Who?
Dr. Samuel Loomis.
Oh yes,
His
Loomis.
vision apart from Donald Pleasance, and how did that kind of...
Well, I still haven't seen the original one, so I don't know. I have no idea what it was like. I'm sure they were great, but I, of course, knew Donald Pleasance. And look, you know, he's a generation older than me, two generations. At least I know his daughter, Angela, very well. So he was always this strange guy who was this brilliant actor. And he brought such an interesting sort of quality to the parts that he played. He was always very sinister, you know. And I'm sure, didn't they use him as a heavy in one of the Bonds? Didn't he play Blofeld or something? Was it? Thank you. I remember him with a cat, like Anyway, he was an amazing actor, no question about it. He also did a lot of stage work, and he was in Man in the Glass Booth, which was written by a co-star of a film I did called Robert Shaw, who was in Jaws, of course. And so I didn't really have to see Halloween, the original, to know what Donald Pleasance could bring. And I said to Rob, should I see this? And he went, nah, you don't have to see it. All right, okay, good. Great. So never saw it, and still never seen it. I've never caught up with it. Maybe one day I will see it, but...
That's a very Rob response.
It's not that I'm avoiding it, but I think it's avoiding me. Is it's never on when I flip. No, I usually know what I want to see and then I don't flip around too much, but you know.
Well, what was it like though, making Loomis your own, given that he's such an iconic character?
Well, of course you don't think, oh, it's an iconic character. It's just, okay, am I in this scene? What is that? Oh, let's read it. Oh yeah, okay. And I kept saying to Rob, you know, how good of a doctor can this guy be? You know? 17 years, one patient. The guy escapes and kills everybody in the town. Are you fucking kidding? What is he? Working for the National Health Service? And so it's hard to take too seriously, you know. But I kind of loved Loomis's earnestness, his belief in good and being able to help this oaf, and all that. That I found very sweet, charming about him. And then when they came to do the second one, I wasn't going to do it for a long time, but then I said, well, Rob, I don't really want to play that part again. I mean, he goes, no, we'll make him... I said, well, why can't we just make him a little different? He goes, like a real prick? I went, yeah, that'd be fun. He goes, yeah, okay, let's make him like, you're the only one to profit from all these tragedies. And I went, that's cool, that's cool. And then he finds a little redemption further along, so...
It was his arc of being kind of a hero and then a villain and then almost
yeah,
back to a hero again.
Almost.
Almost. He's trying. We're all trying.
Almost. He gets squashed at the end. But, yeah, doesn't he come dashing through the wall? I'm like, why didn't you use the fucking door? It's right there. What's the matter with you?
I think at that point everyone was panicking.
Yeah, well,
He's a guy killing people, you know.
but you know, Tyler Mane did a tremendous job because he was always stuck in that mask, you know, pretty much. And I thought he did a tremendous job because he was very expressive. And, you know, it was really cool, I thought. I thought everybody was good. And, you know, Rob's Rob. He takes it to the extreme.
Maybe I should have worn a helmet before I say this out loud in public, but I actually prefer the Rob Zombie versions of Halloween and Halloween 2 to the original.
There you are.
And I have one friend, thanks.
What's your father doing here?
I would have so many questions about that.
Who knows? Look, I'm sure the new one will be fun, and to see Jamie doing it would be great.
She looks like a badass.
I could care less, because I never saw it. Will I be rushing off to see it? I doubt it.
Another 90-minute nap?
No, my kids won't want to see that. I think my kids lasted at the premiere of 2, I think they lasted all of 3 minutes. My wife was like, excuse me, I went, yeah, I'll be out soon. And And that was that. But, you know, hey, that's what it is. It's a genre movie, and it's a beautifully done movie. And Rob is a terrific talent. And, you know, I did 31 with him as well. Yeah. I always thought they called him Father Murder because they couldn't come up with any name. And they just went, oh, what does he do? Murder. Okay, fine. Which I thought was a bit lame at the time, but hey.
This could be good.
Marvin. Shall I take it?
Absolutely.
Hello, Marvin. How are you? Very well. What's up? For golf? Well, I'd love it. Actually, you're now on speaker, being listened to by 200 people. And I'm in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is a very, very beautiful, fine place. It's quite near Boston. Please go out, enjoy the course without me this week, but next week I will be available.
The oldest boy, Beckett, is a rockabilly.
That's true.
Great music. He is wonderful. And maybe one day Malcolm will bring Beckett and his rest of his group, and they'll play for you and entertain.
There you are, you see, there you are. And you can tell this man is a lawyer. Because he loves a crowd. Okay, my friend, next week, take care. Okay, bye.
Thanks, Marvin. How was your golf game?
What?
Are you a good golfer? No, now that we've opened the door.
Good?
No,
Did you say good?
Yeah, how's your golf game?
I wouldn't say I'm good. Adequate. Actually, I stopped playing for 3 years because I had various physical things like skin cancers on my head and God knows what else. So I had to stop. But I am now back. I'm enjoying it. Now, what about, should we let them ask questions? Has anybody got anything interesting to say?
We've got mics running around.
Oh my God.
Raise your hand, and the mics are going to come around. And
These two are getting married soon.
I'll stand up so. I just want to say the part in Clockwork Orange that's really obscure is the part where you played the vampire in that really quick flash. Whose choice was that? Because I get that it's probably a Predator aspect to it.
I think it's, you know, the blood and it's not scary, but
it's pretty intense though. I think it makes me look badass a little bit though. It makes me look badass. And also
the first image Stanley gave me of Alex and the movie. I mean, I had read it, but the first image he goes was of Alex whipping Christ, dragging the crucifix, him whipping Christ. And, you know, you think, who is this Roman soldier? And you go in and there's Alex. It's, you know, because that's where his mind was at. He was reading the Bible, but for the wrong reasons. The Bible is actually a very violent book. You know, it is. That's what it is. History is violent, so.
And do you think if Kubrick was still alive today, you guys would have worked again?
No.
No. Because I heard about the upsetting, like, departure after Clockwork.
You know, you do one masterpiece with the man is enough.
Definitely.
And honestly, don't try and find that magic in a bottle. You know, it's. So I'm so happy I did that movie. It made my life and career. For 10 years, it made it a misery. But after that, I embraced it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
How you doing? Before I get to my question, I just want to say one thing because you know you mentioned you're a golfer and you're not that great. I'm not that great. My dad always says, you know, you don't win golf, you play golf.
That's right. And you don't hit the ball, you swing the club.
Yes.
That's a real hard concept though, especially for kids. See, my kids get up there and start whacking at it, and you're going, no, endless, you know.
My question is,
yes,
about American Satan. How was it working, you know, you've done a lot of stuff in your career, how was it working with people who were primarily musicians rather than actors?
Well, I thought they were extremely good. But you know, musicians are very close to their performers. So you're not starting with, you know, a complete dullard. They've got something. And that boy, whose name I've forgotten now.
Andy Biersack.
Who?
Andy Biersack.
Andy, yeah. I thought he was terrific. And I enjoyed it, except for the fact that it was night shooting the whole time. So you'd go to work at 2 in the morning. It was brutal. I mean, who wants that? I said to him, God, can't you just put blackouts? Can't we just come to work at 9 in the morning like everybody else? No. Because we were shooting at the Whiskey A Go-Go and the Rainbow Room, all these iconic places on Sunset. Well, they don't close till 3 in the morning, if they close at all. But it was fun going and working in those places because, you know, sat at the table where Joe DiMaggio took Marilyn Monroe on the first date, and there at the Rainbow Room, and they still have the table next to the fireplace. It's sort of, you know, American history. It's crazy. It's so great. I mean, it's something we all know about, but don't really. And then you see it. You know, it's a beautiful thing. It's like I love old Hollywood. I want to see where Lucille Ball lived, but they've torn it down. I mean, what the fuck are they doing? So they build these gigantic mansions up to the lot lines, and they're totally hideous. And they pulled down Rosemary Clooney's home, which was such a, you know, beautiful place. I know it's staggering to me.
Thank you.
But then, you know, I'm old worldly in English. Although I've lived in America longer than in England. Hello, darling, yes. Anybody else? Are we done? Oh, here's a gentleman here. Oh, you're next. Excellent. Do stand up.
Okay.
Why not?
Hi. What's your favorite role that you ever played?
The next one. It's true. Honestly, I'm not the kind of personality that looks back. So really, as soon as I've done something, what's next? It's just the way it is. I think it's a form of protection and of survival, because I left England and literally the moment I stepped foot in America, I never thought about England again. Sort of weird. Some people would say that's a certain lacking of character. But,
Those people are here. Those people are here.
Okay, well. So that I never really want to see the work I do, you know, because it's the creation of it is the fun. That's the real fun for me, not the watching of it. So the watching of it, I leave to you, and then you can tell me whether you like it or not. Are we boring you? Sorry. Oh, great. Okay. Who's on next?
Twin Peaks?
Fabulous! Well, stay in your seats. By the way, I don't know whether you noticed this, but there is a dog shelter that was burnt down here. And they have couple of lovely dogs. I don't know whether they're for adoption or not, but if anybody knows of anybody that wants a dog or a cat, please ask these two ladies who are really lovely. I think one of them may be a personal dog, so don't try and wrestle it from them. But they had a terrible fire that killed a lot of animals. It was really tragic. Not that they don't kill them anyway, but they don't usually cook them. Yes. Two questions. Okay, two-parter. see the color of this? It's excuse me? I feel suddenly sick. My team is Liverpool, which is where I'm from. And if you're not into English soccer teams and the Premiership, I suggest, if you're interested at all, only go to Liverpool and watch them because they're the most fun team to watch. That said, excuse me, stand up, sir, please. Obviously a man of integrity and honesty. And he's just said what I say is the truth. You think I lie? I don't lie to all these people. And how did I like Franklin and Bash? It paid a very nice mortgage. And the boys were great. I enjoyed it. Thank you, thank you. But if you haven't seen Mozart in the Jungle, which is on Amazon Prime, then you've done yourself a misservice because that's a way better show. And it's about an orchestra in New York lifting the curtain behind the scenes to all the bed hopping, the crazy egos, and of which my character is in the forefront of that, who is a delicious guy, who's this wonderful conductor who's been kicked upstairs on the board for some, Mexican guy to come in and take over as the #1 maestro, which really gets up his nose. And he can't stand him in the first season, and then loves him by season 4. It's actually one of the most fun TV shows around. Unfortunately, it is over now, but you can get 4 seasons of it. Yes? Very well.
Obviously, you're a veteran actor, and
by the way, let me just say this before you've got obviously a very intelligent question.
Sorry.
I will just say this because you're all here. We're very close to Boston. Liverpool football team is owned by John Henry, who owns the Red Sox. So hey, if you guys are United fans, shame on you. Thank you. I feel like I'm home here. Yes. What was your question?
Obviously, my favorite films from back then are Clockwork Orange and Dawn of the Dead. So it's amazing that you're sitting right next to Galen Ross and
Yes.
But I also wanted to ask, what do you get to let loose when you work on shows like Metalocalypse and Fallout, games like Fallout? Like when you just do voice acting, do you get to just let loose and kind of enjoy it?
Thank you. Actually, where I let loose was I did these commercials for Lunchables. And they said, well, you can, I said, well, all right, let me do one, just keep it running. And I went, and here's the box. I said, actually, the truth is, there's more protein in the box than there is in the contents. Oh, sorry. Can't I say that? No. They go, give me your first thoughts on emojis. Now, this is before I knew what emojis were. Okay, now I sense no. This is a few years ago, and I said, emojis is a card game played in Japan. Okay, let's play emojis tonight. Okay, here, dish the cards out. Well, now we're playing emojis. Okay. So I went and just made all these weird things up, and they're all online, and they're hilarious. They're fun. That's Lunchables. Thank God they paid me a shitload of money.
There's actually a card game, because you said it was a card game. I'm here, Japan is a culture that creates so much pop
what
culture.
are emojis? I have no idea. And they would ask me things, and I was supposed to give, just off the top of my head, answers.
I'd be willing to bet money there's now an emojis card game.
Well, if there isn't, hey.
They owe you royalties.
They owe me.
Call
Exactly. Yes.
First of all, my heart is beating being in the same room with you. In 1974, I was taking a college course in Shakespearean literature. I asked my professor why there wasn't a glossary, as in the book that I was reading at the time, which was A Clockwork Orange. But my question to you is, your choreography in A Clockwork Orange Was there intense training for that, or is that a natural ability of yours? Because it was outstanding.
You mean oh God, well the truth is that, I read this book, it's very complex, and I knew that it was an incredible book, and of course I was working with probably the greatest director working at the time, but then I was supposed to step up to the plate and be as good, at least, as the worst element, and there wasn't a worst element. You had a brilliant writer, a brilliant book, and so I worked with Stanley doing pre-production for many months. I'd hang out at his house, did the look, the this, the that, the eyelashes, and all that, the bowler, the whole look of it. And I remember saying to him, how do you direct Stanley? Because I was used to Lindsay Anderson, who was a very nurturing director to his actors, because he was really a stage director. And Kubrick just said to me, well, I don't know. He goes, listen, I don't know what I want, but I do know what I don't want. Which is a very interesting and perceptive thing that he said, actually, and it was totally true. Hence, he goes and does 20 takes or something. But I thought that I kind of knew where the character was coming from a little bit. I decided to do it in a northern accent rather than Cockney. Which when I saw Burgess, he said, that was an interesting choice. Why did you do that? And I said to him, because the language, the Nadsat language, sounded better to me with a northern lilt than a Cockney twang, which is harsh. So, and the language, because I've been at the Royal Shakespeare Company, I think it was easy for me to do the language because it was like doing Shakespeare, it was a bit proclaimed, a little bit, and it was easy for me to do. But a week before we started shooting, now I've been working on this damn thing for at least 8 months, I suddenly got cold feet and thought, but what is this character really? I don't really know, and he won't discuss it with me. So I called my friend Lindsay Anderson. I said, would you read the script for me? And can I talk to you about it? He said, bring it over. He read the script, and so I was waiting for what the master would say. The first thing he said was, well, thank God I don't have to direct this. I went, okay, I know it's not your cup of tea, it's not your kind of thing. But, I've got to play it, so he goes, this is how you play it. Now this to me is one of the most genius bits of direction I ever had in my life. He goes, Malcolm, there is a close-up of you in If, where you open the gymnasium doors to meet the prefects before they beat you. And you know what they're going to do. There's a close-up like this, that you look at them, and smile. He goes, that's how you play this part. So he put it into one sentence, really, how to actually do this part. And it was so helpful to me because I only thought about it on the first day. After the first day, I never even remembered it. In fact, I only remembered it a year later. And I suddenly went, oh my God, it was Lindsay. And that's all he said. So that this weird fuck you smile sort of got me through and people wrote about it saying it was the sneer of the 70s or whatever, which is probably true. It was, because it was such a revolutionary look in the film. That it was, and the joke is the futuristic bit in the movie was only 10 minutes. It was only the first 10 minutes, but you think, oh my God, this is the future. Most of it is quite boring sets. I mean, I don't think they only built one set for the whole of the movie, and that was the Corova Milk Bar. That was it. The rest are all locations in London that they dressed. And that was it. That was it.
That was a really good question to end on, so thank you
Wasn't
so much
it?
for that. Malcolm is going to be here all weekend, signing and talking and chatting with
Yeah, come by the
you.
table and
Alright.
you'll say hello.
We'll chat. So make sure you give a big hand